Welcome back, friends. Happy St. Pete Science Festival Day. Now we have Sarah Grasty Pruitt from USF College of Marine Science, and she's going to be speaking with us about how we are all connected to the ocean. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to share this screen. Okay. So sorry about that. 1 second. Try to get the PowerPoint up. Okay. So yes, thank you all for whoever's out there. My name is Sarah Grasty, and I'm from University of South Florida, where I am a marine scientist there. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we're all connected to the ocean. And some of you may already feel connected to the ocean, and that's fantastic. And so I hope you learn a little bit more today. Some of you might not feel so connected to the ocean, and that's okay. And I hope by the end of our little chat today, though, that you can see that whether you like it or not, you are linked to the ocean in some way. So to find out, get us started how we're all connected to the ocean, if you have a sheet of paper and a pen or a pencil, that's great, just to make some tick marks. We're going to take a quick quiz, or just keep score on your hand. That's fine. That's what I'm going to do. Or if you feel like it, you can keep score in your head. So you're going to give yourself 1 point for each time you answer yes to the following questions. So, do you experience weather every day? I don't know about you, but I do. Sometimes, most of the time it's very hot here, lots of rain, right? Do you like to go fishing or eat seafood? And do you use toothpaste on a daily basis? Again, I hope everyone's saying yes, but you never know. And do you go place to place wherever you need to get to in a car or a bus or a plane or a train? Anything like that? And then last one, do you like to enjoy any kind of prepackaged food? I know I like to indulge in chips and cookies and sodas from time to time, or even bottled water, anything like that. All right, I don't know about all of you out there, but I have all five. So, but even if you only have one, it does mean that you are connected to the ocean. So we're gonna go through those real quick. So first, you experience weather every day. So a lot of you may be familiar already with what this picture is showing, but it's the water cycle. And so what that means is that the sun will heat up the surface of the ocean here, and that water will start to evaporate and form clouds. And then the wind kind of will blow those clouds over land where we are, and it'll rain. So that's really where our weather comes from, is from the ocean and the sun. And then number two, do you like to go fishing or eat seafood? And this one's a little bit more obvious probably. So obviously if you like to go fishing out on the ocean, that's where those fish live. And for us to have enough seafood for everyone to enjoy, the oceans have to be healthy. So there's lots of different places in the ocean. The ocean is not just something that's the same everywhere you go. It starts at the shore and it can go very, very deep. And even in places where there's very little light or no light at all, there's still fish and other things that live there. And this one might be a little bit more surprising. So do you use toothpaste? So if we just take a generic type of toothpaste, this is a random one from Walgreens. And if we zoom into the ingredients, this one right here, carrageenan, is actually a type of seaweed. So little did you know that you may or may not be brushing your teeth with some seaweed. And number four, do you go from place to place in a car or a bus? Well, those things generally need some type of gas or fuel, right? Well, in the Gulf of Mexico especially, there's actually a lot of gas that comes from way deep in the ocean. So this is called an offshore oil rig. And there's actually a lot of people, probably hundreds of people working on this to pump that gas from way down in the sea and bring it on up to the surface and send it back to us on land so that we can use it. And so this is kind of a side view. So if we had that rig there, and if you go all the way down through the water till you get to the deep sea, and then you drill even further, you can get to some oil. And then they put that oil on something called an oil tanker, which is a really, really big ship. And then it comes back to land so that we can put it into our vehicles and to heat and cool our homes. And then the last one, which is what we're going to kind of focus on for the rest of the time, are things like prepackaged foods or other goodies that we get from the store. And so that doesn't just include, like I said, food, but it could be laundry detergent or shampoo, anything that has something known as single-use plastic. So I myself know that I still use a lot of single-use plastic. I like to go out to eat, and sometimes you don't finish everything. You have takeout containers, or maybe you go to the store and you don't have, or you forgot your reusable bags, and so you have to use a plastic one. Or you like the convenience of a throwaway water bottle. Well, so all of these things are, like I said, what we call single-use plastics, and they end up in the ocean. So we're going to take a little quiz real quick. I know I can't see your answers, but we're going to come back to it. So right now I want you to look at these things. So these aren't all single-use plastics. There's some other trash thrown in there. But I want you guys to think about which one of these objects you think lasts the longest in the ocean and which one disintegrates the quickest. So we've got cigarette butts, which are, mostly paper, and then plastic grocery bags, which I'm sure a lot of us use, styrofoam cups, an aluminum can, 6-pack rings that come sometimes on soda can packs, disposable baby diapers, plastic bottles, and fishing line. All right, so if you want to submit it in the question or in the chat, you can, which one you think lasts the longest and which one's the shortest, or you can just keep it in your head. We're going to come back to it at the end, okay, as our little bit of trivia. All right, moving on. So all of these single-use plastics that all of us use all the time, as I had mentioned, they unfortunately do make it into the ocean quite a bit. But how do they get there? And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, because it's one of the biggest ways that we're actually all connected to the ocean. And so to do that, I'm going to go to the map, and hopefully you can still see the screen. Okay. All right. So here we are. Here's North America. We got Canada. Here's the United States, Mexico. I think almost all of us are probably down here in Tampa Bay. So what's cool about this map? Oh, I think you can't see my screen. So hold on. Let me reshare. I knew that was going to happen when I changed screens. All right. Okay. So hopefully now you can see the map that I'm using. No. Oh, I'm being told no. All right, we might have to skip the map. Oh, wait, I guess it was just on delay. Okay. I have my peanut gallery helping me. All right. So it should show up in just a second. There might be a bit of a delay. Okay, so now you should see the map, and I've already zoomed into Florida. And so as I was saying, most of us are probably here in Tampa Bay, and this is the Gulf of Mexico here. So that large body of water we're all lucky to live on. And what's neat about this map is it's kind of showing you where some bigger bodies of water are inland, and maybe some texture, which are different small mountains, right? And other high points and low points in our state and in the United States. But if we zoom in, something else is going to become a little bit more apparent. So I'm going to keep zooming. You see more water now. I'm going to keep going into Tampa Bay. And boom, look at all those blue spots on the map. So what those are different waterways. Some of you may live on a canal, or some of you may be lucky enough to live right on the water, or maybe on some small ponds and lakes. And so what these all do is essentially connect us straight to the ocean in some way or another. Maybe you live here and you're close to this little canal that drains into this small body of water, which eventually goes into Tampa Bay, and then that's connected to the ocean. So these are really important, and we're going to come back to these and talk about how these different small waterways do make their way to the big ones, which are the oceans. And perhaps one of the biggest waterways in the United States is the Mississippi River, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And the Mississippi River is what connects the Midwest. So it's hard to see the state or to know where the states are, but you got Lake Michigan up here. So there's Illinois, and it comes down through the Midwest, goes into Louisiana. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see it because it's a big, big waterway. There's the Mississippi. So that can carry lots of stuff from people living way inland in the United States all the way to the oceans. And so once trash makes it to the ocean, there's something else at play there. It doesn't just stay on the coast. There are something called ocean currents that will move whatever makes it from us into the oceans. Then they move around the ocean. So these arrows are kind of showing you some bigger ocean currents, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but ocean water doesn't stay still. It is constantly moving from wind, and there's different temperatures and different saltiness that makes the water start to churn and move. And so you have those factors at play, and that's going to be important because we're going to talk about this area over here. So you kind of see this big, it's called a gyre. And what it is the movement of a big body of water moving in a circle. And there's something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch that actually has formed in this area. And then one other thing that I wanted to touch on why and how we're all connected to the oceans, especially those of us on the coast, is if you look at how many people live on the coastline. So where you see bright red, that's where you have a lot of people packed into a smaller amount of area. So you have a lot of room to breathe here out west. There's not that many people that live too close together, but like us in Tampa Bay, it's very dense. So there's just a lot of people on a very small piece of land. And people like the water, they want to be on the coastline, but that also means that our trash is a lot closer to the oceans. And so we need to be mindful of that. All right, I got to switch back to the PowerPoint, so bear with me. All right, PowerPoint. Okay, it should show up in just a second. All right, so we went to our map. And so remember when I showed you and I zoomed in and we saw all those blue areas become very abundant. There was a lot of different waterways that were connected to one another, and they were small and then went to the bigger ones. So I don't know about you guys, but when I walk around downtown Tampa or St. Petersburg or other neighborhoods in Tampa Bay, sometimes I see these little things and it says dump no waste, drains to bay. And they're always tacked on to one of these storm drains. And so what this is just another pathway on top of our canals and creeks and rivers of how trash and other debris can make it to the bigger bodies of water like Tampa Bay and then into the Gulf of Mexico. So what these are telling you is that anything that goes into this space here is going to eventually make it out into Tampa Bay and the Gulf of Mexico. And this is kind of a cool map. It actually shows you just how many different underground waterways, so these storm drains, there are in a small part of St. Petersburg. So just imagine this on a much larger scale, how many of these underground waterways we have and that drain out into the bay. So this is called Clam Bayou. Some of you might live near here. This is Gulfport, and then this is St. Petersburg. And so just in this little area alone, you have all these storm drains and all of these These green dots are one of these. So think about how much trash you see blowing around maybe on the roads every day. Well, that stuff will make it into these little green dots, and then they'll travel down these little blue lines and then make it into the places that we like to enjoy. And then, as I mentioned, when we talk about a bigger scale, we have the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And you may think, well, that's way far away. But actually, there's a lot of trash that'll make it from the west coast of our country, as well as maybe make it around from the Atlantic, or a lot from Asia as well. And then it gets trapped because this water is constantly moving in a circle. And then it stays here for a really long time. And while you may be envisioning something like this for the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, while the trash that we accidentally let get into the oceans may start large, it actually ends up very, very small pretty quickly, but then it lasts for a really long time. So these are little plastic nurdles, they're called. So they're actually the little pieces of plastic that get melted down to make all the things we like to buy, like plastic bottles and things like that. And other things that we purchase and then accidentally let into the ocean break down into little jagged, colorful pieces like this. So most of the plastic pollution in the ocean is actually kind of on this scale. And guess what? It lasts for a really long time, 450 years or more. So it's long after we're all here. Our trash is still going to be in the ocean. And unfortunately, a lot of ocean life can suffer. They can get entangled in discarded fishing nets and other things, or they have to live amongst trash, or they may ingest it. So no good, right? Even if you don't live near the ocean, it's not fun to think about other things that are being harmed by our trash, right? So another thing that I wanted to let you all know is that our trash has even made it to the deepest part of the ocean. Okay, so this little graphic here is showing you, here's sea level, here's the depth that people usually can dive to, right? And then if you go way, way down, this is the deepest part of the ocean. It's called the Marianas Trench, and the deepest point is called the Challenger Deep, and it's 36,000 feet deep. And what that would kind of equate to, if it helps you envision just how deep that is, that would be like a 2,500 foot story building. So completely impossible. And it's kind of hard to grasp just how deep it is. But the sad thing is we have actually, our trash has made it to that point. There was some cool video footage that a submarine was able to take, and this little piece of trash here is in Challenger Deep. And if you zoom in, it's kind of hard to tell what it is, but the biologists and the scientists on board, they said it was a plastic bag, unfortunately. So clearly, this is a big problem, not just for anyone who lives on the coast, but for all humans on the planet, right? So just to recap, plastics are a big problem in the ocean, and there's lots of ways that they can make it there. So if you're living inland, rain and wind can cause trash to go into those storm drains. Remember those underwater waterways? Or they can go into canals and rivers, which then drain out into bigger bodies of water like the Bay and like the Gulf of Mexico. Or people along the coast may accidentally, not dispose of their trash properly, and then it ends up in the ocean. It can get ingested by animals, or it gets broken down into those little pieces. Remember, it doesn't stay big, it breaks down and ends up in those really tiny plastic pieces and stays that way for a long time. And so how long does it stay in the ocean? Remember our little quiz from the beginning? So I don't know what you guys guessed, but the shortest amount of time was the cigarette butt. Maybe not surprising because it's mostly paper. Still a long time though. Think about that, 10 years for something that's papery to break down in the ocean and not be there anymore. And then things like plastic bottles and fishing line, which is also made out of a type of plastic, 450 to 600 years. That's just absolutely crazy to me. So what can we do? Pretty simple stuff, actually. So reduce how much single-use plastics you're buying, even if it's maybe buying one last candy bar, or maybe you could try to reuse things. So buy a water bottle that you don't have to throw away all the time. And then leave no trace. If you yourself are near the coast or anywhere and you can't find a trash can, hold it on until you can. Or if you see trash laying around anywhere else, just make sure you toss it. Like I said, pretty simple things. And the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, many of you maybe have visited there. They have a nice little graphic about how to do it. So, like I said, use less plastic, clean up the beach when you're there. It takes just a few minutes, and use other things that are nice to the environment. And if we all do it, it's something that can make a big impact. And remember that we're all connected to the ocean. It's a blue planet out there. It's not a land planet, right? So we got to take care of it and keep our connection to the ocean in mind. So with that, I will take questions.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing how we're connected to the ocean in multiple ways. That was really great to hear.
Yeah.
Um, so we're going to take some questions now. We'll do our best to get to all of them. Of course, you may know by now we're working with thousands of students. We're very fortunate to have them all on here. If your question doesn't get answered, we will get back to you with an email response. So let me go ahead and take this question. So a question coming up asks, the sun pulls water from the ocean. Is that correct?
Yeah, so obviously the sun is what gives us is what allows us to live on this planet, gives us the amount of heat that we need, right? But heat also causes water to evaporate, so it doesn't stay in liquid form. It ends up making tiny droplets that then can rise because they're a little lighter and move up into the atmosphere. So that's how water from the ocean makes it way up near where the clouds are, and then that water gets pushed, or those little droplets as clouds get pushed on land, and then it rains.
Okay. All right. We got a very important question coming up here, as they all are. Every question's a good question. Please
That's
keep them
right.
coming. Will we ever run out of fish?
Yes, it is possible. Luckily, the United States has there. We have a pretty good fisheries management program. So, there's things, if you go out to eat, you might see grouper on the menu, or shrimp, or snapper. And so those are all called fisheries. They are populations of fish that we go out and catch to then consume or use for something else. So we have to make sure that we understand what's happening with those populations, and then how much can be caught. And so, there's a lot of different agencies like NOAA or Florida Fish and Wildlife that help make sure that we understand the health of the populations, and then how many we can catch, to make sure that there's enough to then reproduce and keep us fed and keep them healthy.
Okay, great. Uh, Question coming in, is there a disposable water bottle?
You mean, so like a biodegradable water bottle, maybe? But
Yeah,
they,
let's chat on that.
no, I'm not sure about that. I know that they have some plastics have been developed in the last several years that are, they say that they're biodegradable, but even then, they may not take 450 years to degrade, but they're still going to take time, maybe 100 years to degrade, or 50. And so if you're able to have a water bottle that's maybe aluminum or glass that could possibly last you for 10 or 20 years, that would be great. Then you don't have to worry about throwing things away that are
Okay.
plastic.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Marianas Trench?
Oh, I'll do my best. I don't quite study things that are quite that deep, but I would encourage everyone to go look up pictures of creatures that live in the Marianas Trench, because they're pretty wild. So
Yeah.
there's no light that deep, because as the reason that the oceans are blue is because we see light on a spectrum, Roy G. Biv, right? Red to violet. And reds are absorbed first by the water. So that's why you see mostly blues and greens. But by the time you get that deep, there's just no light left at all. And so they sometimes have to create their own light down there. either to not be caught by other predators or to lure things. So they actually have bioluminescence, which is self-produced light. And so there's some pretty wild looking things down there, like the anglerfish is a pretty iconic one. So yeah, life is tough down there. There's not as much food, there's no light, and but they make up for it in being quite interesting looking characters.
Okay, so I'm going to take one or two more questions. Are you an ocean activist, and how can someone become one?
Sure. Yeah, I would consider myself an ocean activist. I certainly want it to be healthy, and I just told you all we're all connected to it and we're all responsible for it, right? So hopefully everyone's a little bit of an ocean activist in some way. And if you want to become one, I would say that you could start by maybe organizing a cleanup in your neighborhood. It doesn't even have to be on the water. It can be anywhere. You can go to a park and clean up trash and other things there. But there are also a lot of organizations, like I think in the last one, the last presentation, they mentioned things like scuba knots, where you can learn how to go diving and research the ocean that way as a very young student. There's a lot of environmental nonprofits that organize fundraisers and other cleanups and things like that. So Tampa Bay is very lucky. We have a lot of ocean oriented people and they're all doing really great things. So I don't know them all, but hopefully a quick Google search could turn up some fun things.
That's great. And our next and our last question was, do you do beach cleanups, which you actually just shared with us too. And then our student also wanted to share PS girl power. So,
Yeah.
so we'll wrap that up. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and again, sharing a way we're all connected to the ocean. Really important stuff. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you all. Have a good day, everyone.